It is a very specific, like deeply irritating kind of frustration when you are frantically tearing your house apart looking for your glasses.
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Right. Like you are checking the couch cushions, you are looking in the fridge for some inexplicable reason.
It is completely irrational places.
Exactly. Your blood pressure is rising, and then you happen to walk past a hallway mirror.
And there they are.
They have been sitting on top of your head the entire time. I mean, you were looking everywhere outside of yourself for the exact thing you were already carrying around.
Which is, it's actually the perfect visual for the modern career crisis.
Oh, totally.
Because we are so heavily conditioned by society to believe that if we want to build something new or, create an additional stream of income, we have to go out and acquire entirely new skill.
Like we have to start from zero.
Right. We assume the answer is just like out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And we completely ignore the massive inventory of experiences we have already accumulated.
And that dynamic, ignoring what is literally already on top of your head, that is the foundation for today's deep dive.
It really is.
So let's get into it. It is Thursday, April 23, 2026. And our mission today is to decode this fascinating guide called The Blueprint.
Yeah, written by Sammy.
Right, the creator behind Sammy Central. We are breaking down his practical framework for taking the skills, the passions, and the life experiences you already possess and intentionally packaging them into multiple streams of income.
Because you might be sitting on an absolute mountain of potential right now.
Literally. But without a mechanism to capture it, that potential just kind of evaporates.
Yeah, and the mechanism is what we are really dissecting today.
Yeah.
Because Sammy built this thriving brand on what is honestly an incredibly eclectic mix of topics.
Very eclectic.
Like he's got basketball coaching, faith-based encouragement, gaming, and then, the raw realities of the content creator journey.
Yeah, all over the map.
But the core premise of his work is that he did not go out and take formal courses on these things just to start a business. He simply found a way to monetize his lived reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before anyone can even start building out multiple streams of income, Sammy insists we have to detonate a massive mental roadblock.
The niche myth.
Yes, the pervasive lie that you need to go out and quote-unquote find a niche. I mean, we treat the concept of a niche like it is some elusive creature hiding behind a tree in the forest.
And that hunt for a niche, it just causes absolute paralysis for people.
Yeah, they just freeze.
They spend months researching market gaps, looking at what's trending instead of just looking inward.
Right.
Sammy actually argues that your niche is already inside you. It's made up the things you find yourself naturally talking about for free.
The stuff you can't shut up about.
Exactly. The subjects where you completely lose track of time when you're explaining them to a friend.
So, to formalize this, Sammy introduces an exercise called the asset inventory.
He does, yeah. You basically had to sit down and rigorously audit your life.
Like, what are you actually asking yourself during this audit?
You're asking, what do people actually pay me for right now? Or what do my friends constantly ask my advice on?
Oh, that's a good one.
And even deeper, like, what specific painful problems have I successfully solved in my own life?
But, okay, let me push back a bit here.
Yeah.
If I am listening to this and I do that audit, my immediate instinct is that I'm going to end up with a very disjointed list.
Sure, a lot of random stuff.
Yeah, like, say I write down that I am obsessed with retro video games, and I am the go-to person in my family for organizing chaotic schedules.
Okay.
And I also know a lot about gardening. On paper, that just looks like the hobbies of a very stressed person.
That's a fair point.
So how does a seemingly random list of assets translate into a cohesive business model? Who would pay for that?
Well, the magic happens when you stop looking at those assets as completely separate businesses. You have to start looking at them as intersecting facets of a single persona. Like, Sammy did not launch a separate basketball business, and then a separate gaming channel, and a separate religious blog.
Oh, he blended them.
Right. He used his faith and his personal transparency as the unique lens through which he taught basketball or discussed gaming.
That makes sense.
And this is anchored in what I consider like the most powerful quote in the blueprint. He says, "Your testimony is your curriculum. Your experience is your product."
Wow. Your experience is your product. That shifts the value proposition entirely.
It fundamentally changes what you are actually selling. I mean, let's break down the mechanics of why that works.
Let's do it.
If someone just wants raw information, they can query an AI. Or they can run a web search for free.
Yeah, information is basically free now.
Exactly. People do not open their wallets for raw facts anymore. They pay for transformation.
That's a huge distinction.
They pay for a guide who has already navigated the exact treacherous path that they are currently trying to walk.
Like a shortcut.
Yes. They are buying the lived experience. The specific pitfalls you learned to avoid and the shortcuts you discovered the hard way. Your messy, overlapping life experiences make you an irreplaceable guide.
Whereas raw information is just a cheap commodity.
Exactly.
But that brings up a massive psychological hurdle, though. I mean, let's say I accept that my messy lived experience has value.
Okay.
The sheer terror of putting myself out there, risking public failure or looking foolish to my peers.
It's paralyzing.
It really is. It's enough to keep that potential locked in a drawer forever. Fear is just an incredibly powerful deterrent.
Oh, it absolutely is. And Sammy addresses this internal barrier before he ever touches on actual business strategy.
Really?
Yeah. His antidote to fear is a combination of relentless action fueled by faith. To understand his framework, you really have to look at the bedrock of his brand.
Which is?
It's built on this phrase, God is good in every season. Now, structurally speaking, whether you share that faith or not, operating from a worldview like that provides an immense amount of operational resilience.
Because it completely detaches your self-worth from your analytics dashboard.
Precisely. Because when you are building a new income stream from scratch, you will inevitably hit seasons where the growth metrics are completely flat.
Crickets.
Just absolute crickets. You are putting in grueling hours and seeing a 0% return on your investment.
And if your identity is tied to the algorithm, you're doomed.
Right. If your motivation is tied exclusively to getting rewarded by likes and views, you will abandon the project within a month.
Yeah.
Sammy uses his faith as an immutable anchor. It allows him to continue executing his strategy even when the immediate outcome is super murky or discouraging.
So once you have that resilience locked in, you can actually start changing the architecture of your career.
Yes, the structural shift.
Right. He talks about making a definitive shift from thinking in terms of jobs to thinking in terms of lanes. And we all know the traditional job model.
One role, one employer.
One paycheck. It is a very fragile ecosystem.
It is a single point of failure, honestly. If that one company downsizes, your entire economic reality collapses overnight.
Yeah, it's terrifying when you think about it.
So Sammy defines a lane as any avenue where the value you create becomes income you receive.
Right.
A YouTube channel is one lane. A premium coaching program is a second lane. A downloadable digital template is a third. You are building a diversified economic ecosystem.
To put a visual on this, it's like the traditional career is operating a manual water pump. You only get water as long as your hand is physically pushing the lever up and down.
Right, active effort.
And the second you get tired and stop pumping, the water stops flowing entirely. But Sammy's model of opening up lanes,
Specifically passive income lanes.
yeah, passive lanes, it's like setting up a series of rain barrels around your property. It takes a lot of intentional effort to build them, seal them, position them perfectly.
A lot of upfront work.
But once a storm finally hits, they collect water while you are fast asleep inside.
I love that analogy. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal isn't just to build a bunch of passive rain barrels right away.
No!
No, because we all understand the basic definitions of active versus passive income, right? But Sammy has a really fascinating perspective on the required ratio between the two when you're first building your blueprint.
How so?
Well, active income, like consulting or freelance work, is vital for immediate cash flow.
Oh, to keep the lights on.
Exactly. And it keeps you intimately connected to your clients' pain points. Passive income, on the other hand, provides the scale and the freedom.
Right.
A robust, multi-stream mindset requires you to strategically weave both active and passive lanes together.
So what does this all mean for the listener who is sitting there doing their asset inventory right now? Because the immediate temptation,
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
and I have fallen into this trap myself, you discover you have all these viable assets and you try to open 10 lanes simultaneously.
Sure.
You want to launch the podcast, write the ebook, start the consulting firm, and open an online store all on the same Tuesday.
Which is a mathematical guarantee for burnout and completely mediocre execution.
Yeah, it never works.
Sammy's framework demands ruthless discipline at this stage. You take your comprehensive asset inventory and you force yourself to choose a maximum of 2 or 3 lanes to start.
Just 2 or 3.
Max. And furthermore, those initial lanes must pass a really rigorous 3-part viability test.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, you must possess genuine demonstrable skill. You cannot pick a lane just because the topic is currently trending on social media.
No faking it.
Right. Second, there must be an active existing demand for that skill.
And the third criteria, which I think is the filter that eliminates like 90% of vanity projects,
Yep.
is that there has to be a clear, realistic path to monetization within 90 days.
The 90-day rule is the operational linchpin of the entire blueprint. It forces you to aggressively prioritize viability over perfection.
Because if you don't,
If you choose to develop like a massive custom-coded software platform as your first lane, you will likely spend 2 years boring it before you ever see a single dollar.
and you will lose momentum and quit.
Exactly. The 90-day constraint forces you to build the smallest, fastest iteration of your value to prove that an audience actually exists and that they're willing to pull out their credit cards.
I have to challenge Sammy's timeline on this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
He is very loud about telling people not to quit their day jobs while building these lanes.
Very loud about it, yeah.
He suggests dedicating 5 to 10 hours a week, early mornings, late nights, to build this evidence. But let's look at reality for a second.
All right.
If someone is working a demanding full-time job, maybe they have kids, maybe they have a brutal commute, where are these magical 5 to 10 hours coming from? Isn't advising someone to squeeze 10 more hours out of an already exhausted schedule just romanticizing hustle culture?
It is a really vital critique, but if we look closely at Sammy's blueprint, he doesn't sugarcoat the friction involved.
He knows it's hard.
He doesn't pretend those 10 hours will be joyful or easy. He openly acknowledges the brutal reality of 2 a.m. editing sessions and just the sheer fatigue of managing a full life while trying to build a new one.
So why insist on keeping the job then?
Because the reason he insists on keeping the day job isn't to promote burnout. It is to protect your creativity.
Protect it from what?
Desperation. When you burn the boats and quit your job prematurely, desperation infects your content.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You start viewing every follower as a potential transaction just so you can make rent. Keeping the day job provides the financial baseline that allows you to build your lanes with patience and authenticity.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because desperation is highly visible to an audience.
It really is.
And it repels trust instantly. You can smell it on a creator.
Exactly the point.
Right.
And building that trust requires what Sammy calls the consistency engine.
Right.
You cannot monetize a lane if you do not have an audience, and you cannot build an audience without publishing consistent content. But he provides a really crucial mechanical distinction here.
Build versus convert.
Yes. He divides the engine into build content and convert content.
Let's break down the mechanics of those two types, because treating all content the same seems to be where a lot of creators stall out completely.
Right. So build content is engineered strictly for discovery and trust. This is where you are giving away your absolute best insights for free.
Just put it out there.
You are answering common questions, sharing your story, proving your competence, and crucially, you are asking for nothing in return.
No sales pitch.
None. Convert content, on the other hand, is specifically designed to move the people who already trust you toward your paid offers.
Okay.
It explains the exact transformation your product provides and gives a really clear call to action.
So where do people mess this up?
The fatal flaw most beginners make is heavily indexing on convert content before they have actually earned the right to ask through their build content.
Oh, man. Here's where it gets really interesting. Sammy has this strict operational rule. Consistency before cash. You have to establish a reliable rhythm of publishing before you ever ask for a dollar. But again, if you are grinding out those 2 a.m. editing sessions,
which are exhausting,
and you're posting content into the void for weeks without moving the needle, doesn't delaying monetization just accelerate the urge to quit? I mean, you're getting no financial validation.
The delay is psychologically necessary for the consumer, though.
Really?
Yeah. Online, people are inherently skeptical. They do not buy from strangers, and they certainly do not buy from sporadic broadcasters.
Sure.
They buy from people they feel they know, and more importantly, people whose behavior they can predict. Predictability creates psychological safety.
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. When a listener knows you will reliably deliver a high-quality newsletter every Thursday morning, they begin to view you as a stable presence in their life.
Yeah, you become part of their routine.
If you interrupt that trust-building phase by aggressively pitching a product too early, the relationship feels entirely transactional.
It feels cheap.
Exactly. Sammy's rule dictates that if you establish the predictable rhythm first, the revenue will flow naturally as a byproduct of the safety you have created.
All right, so let us visualize this timeline. You have audited your assets, You have picked your lanes. You have survived the exhaustion of the 90-day consistency sprint.
The hardest part.
And you have built real trust with a growing audience.
Yeah.
You are now standing at the bridge.
Yep.
How do you actually cross over to asking for money without feeling like a massive sellout and without terrifying the audience you just worked so hard to attract?
Well, the transition into monetization requires incredibly low friction entry points. Sammy outlines the easiest ways to secure that first transaction.
Which is usually the hardest one.
Always. But the goal of the first dollar isn't to get rich. It is just to prove your knowledge has tangible market value.
So what's the entry point?
Digital products are the prime entry point. A specialized PDF guide, a meticulously organized spreadsheet template, a brief video tutorial.
Stuff that's easy to deliver.
Exactly. These solve one hyper-specific problem for the user. Beyond that, he suggests coaching, where you basically rent out direct access to your brain.
Right.
Or affiliate partnerships, where you simply earn a commission for recommending tools you already genuinely use.
But the moment you create that PDF or open that coaching calendar, you crash headfirst into the psychology of pricing.
Oh boy.
And this is where so many talented people aggressively sabotage themselves. It is this phenomenon of insecurity pricing.
We chronically underprice our value because we mistakenly believe that if a skill comes easily to us, it must be easy for everyone.
Right. If I can do it, anyone can.
Exactly. And therefore we think it is worthless. But Sammy introduces a mental model to completely destroy that insecurity.
What's the model?
You must price based on the magnitude of the transformation delivered, not the chronological time it took you to create the product or learn the skill.
That is huge. Like, think about the classic locksmith scenario. You lock your keys in your car.
Oh, the worst. In a freezing parking lot, usually.
Right. So a master locksmith arrives, takes out a specialized tool, jiggles it in the window, and pops the door open in exactly 5 minutes.
And hands you a bill for $150.
Exactly. And your initial uneducated reaction might be outrage. Like, why am I paying you $150 for 5 minutes of labor?
But you aren't paying for the 5 minutes.
Right. You're paying for the 5 years of intense practice it took him to learn how to open that door so quickly. He's saving you from being stranded in the cold for hours.
What's fascinating here is how Sammy uses that exact logic to completely reframe the emotional burden of selling.
It totally shifts it.
Because if your $37 digital product effectively saves a client 10 hours of frustrating trial and error, the value of that product vastly exceeds the $37 price tag.
It's a bargain, really.
When you truly internalize the fact that your knowledge helps people move from a state of frustration to a state of success, withholding that solution because you feel a little awkward about pitching it is actually a profound disservice to them.
Wow, withholding it is a disservice.
Yeah. Selling, in Sammy's framework, is simply the act of offering a valuable tool to someone who actively needs it. It only feels sleazy if you are peddling something you know does not actually work.
That mindset shift changes your entire posture from apologetic to confident.
Exactly.
But let's look at the community aspect of this. Because if my goal is to build a sustainable, long-term business, I need more than just passive consumers clicking a purchase link.
You need a community.
Right. And if I am trying to actively transition passive scrollers into a highly engaged community, my immediate instinct is to just spin up a private Discord server or a Facebook group and funnel everyone in.
Sure, build a room.
Yeah, I build the digital room and assume the community will just magically form inside it.
And that is the default assumption for most creators. But Sammy argues that the software platform is completely irrelevant if the behavioral participation is missing.
Interesting.
The mechanism for building a community isn't a software feature, it is psychological reciprocity.
Explain that.
Well, an audience simply consumes your media. They watch, they scroll, they leave. A community actively participates.
They engage.
Right. They answer each other's questions in the comments, they defend your brand, and they share your work. To trigger that shift, Sammy insists on a deeply manual, intentional approach.
Like what?
You have to actually remember their screen names. You must reply to their direct messages with genuine thought, not just an emoji. You need to highlight and celebrate their personal wins, not just broadcast your own milestones.
It's actual relationship building.
Yes. When a follower realizes you actually see them as a human being, the principle of reciprocity kicks in. They transition from a consumer into a fierce advocate.
And that army of advocates is exactly what you need to survive what Sammy calls the long game.
The long game is brutal.
Because if there is one thing Sammy is crystal clear about, It is that the creator journey is never a continuous upward trajectory.
No.
You will hit agonizing slow seasons. You will experience algorithmic plateaus where you post great content for 3 months and your follower count remains identical.
And the plateau is the exact coordinate where the majority of creators abandon their blueprint.
They just walk away.
They quit right before the compound interest of their consistency is about to pay out.
So how do you survive it?
Surviving those barren seasons requires a specific zooming out technique. When today's metrics are depressing, you force yourself to review where your skills and reach were 12 months prior.
Perspective.
Exactly. But more importantly, surviving the long game requires returning to the foundational why that initiated your journey in the first place.
Which brings us beautifully full circle to Sammy's ultimate why.
Yeah, his core mission.
He writes that his final mountain, his defined goal, isn't hitting a subscriber milestone or securing a massive brand deal. His goal is simply to be a tangible example.
Just an example.
Yeah. He wants everyday people to look at Sammy Central and realize that a regular person can take the ordinary skills they already possess, serve an engaged community, honor their personal faith, and engineer a sustainable multi-stream income.
It's powerful.
He just wants people to look at his blueprint and say, he showed me the mechanism and he proved it could be done.
It is an incredibly grounding mission.
Yeah.
And the blueprint leaves the reader with highly actionable, uncompromising marching orders to begin that climb today.
Well, let us review those marching orders right now. If you are listening to this and you want to activate this framework, your immediate next steps are non-negotiable.
Write them down.
Step 1. Sit down today and write out your asset inventory. Do not do it in your head. Put it on actual paper.
Yeah.
Step 2. Force yourself to pick just 2 viable lanes to start, not 10. 2
max.
Step 3. Publish 1 piece of build content this week. Remember, done and publish is infinitely more valuable than perfectly hidden on your hard drive.
Whoa.
And step 4. Make 1 offer this month. Give your audience the opportunity to invest in your knowledge. Just get the engine turning.
Because the entire philosophy hinges on taking the overwhelming mountain of your potential and restricting it into a sharply focused, actionable direction.
So, we are going to leave you with a final, maybe slightly uncomfortable thought to mull over today as you analyze your own potential.
Okay.
Think deeply about that asset inventory exercise. If your greatest assets are truly just a reflection of the life you have already navigated, what is the one incredibly obvious skill, passion, or solution that you're completely ignoring right now simply because it comes too easily to you?
We chronically devalue the exact things that make us uniquely equipped to help others.
We really do. We convince ourselves that if a skill wasn't agonizing to acquire, the market won't find it valuable. But maybe you have spent the last 3 years tearing the house apart looking for your perfect niche, and those lasses have been sitting right there on top of your head the entire time.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the blueprint. We will catch you next time.